Okay, so we'll do the examples, the word problem examples on page 2 of the handout that I gave out in class. So the first example, I will admit, is a very simple example, and what we can do, we can concentrate on how to set this up. It's very simple to do, but we're going to introduce a procedure that we'll be able to follow on even more complicated word problems. This one is simple enough where we can actually concentrate on the procedure and not on how to solve it. Now, the first thing you will notice here is that on this side over here, I have what I called the assignment box. It's a good idea for you to set up an assignment box every time you do a word problem. What goes into the assignment box? As it says, all the unknowns, and then the expressions that you write for the unknowns in terms of one variable. Okay, so like I mentioned in class, every word problem eh, will have a sentence, will contain a sentence that introduces all the unknowns and how they're related. Usually it's the first sentence or it might be the second sentence. In this particular problem, it's the first sentence that introduces all the unknowns and how they're related. So let's see. It says Jack earns twice as much as Jill. So from there in my assignment box, I know that the two unknowns are Jack's earnings and Jill's earnings. As we mentioned in class as well, one of the things you want to do is you got to decide which one you're going to let the variable represent. Well, remember what we said. We said you always let the variable represent the second unknown that's introduced in the sentence. In this first sentence, the unknown Jack's earnings is mentioned before Jill's earnings. So we let X be Jill's earnings. And then we use the keyword twice, which tells us that Jack's earnings will be 2 times the amount that Jill makes. Okay, now that we have our two unknowns, notice I use one variable to represent both of these unknowns. So then there will be another sentence in the word problem to tell you how to set up an equation. Now we're given this equation says that together they earn $750 weekly. Let's see if we can set up an equation from that information. Let me go back to the 2x here. What this 2x represents only Jack's earnings, none of Jill's earnings. And the x here represents how much money Jill makes in a given week. For example, that's the amount of her paycheck. So if if I were to take the amount of money that Jack makes by himself, add to that the amount of money that Jill makes by herself, that should give me their total earnings for the week. So from the assignment box, I know that Jack's earnings are 2x. Jill's earnings is x. Then from the word problem, I was given that together they make $750. So that's the setup. You see how I use an assignment box, put down the unknowns, and how to write expressions for them using only one variable. And then I look for another sentence in the word problem. In this case, it was the second sentence. It tells me how to write an equation. So I take the amount of money Jack makes by himself, add to that the amount of money that Jill makes by herself, and that should give me their total earnings, which in this case turns out to be $750. Now, solving the equation is very simple. All I do is take the 2x, simplify the left-hand side, add the 2x and the x, gives me 3x. Then I divide both sides by 3, and I get x equals 250. Notice how I didn't show the step where I divided by 3. I'm going to start skipping those steps, and you should be able to follow how I went from, let's say, this step to that step there. Okay, so now what I do, and this is the critical part, now that I know that x equals 250, I have to answer the question that's stated in the problem. How much does each earn? So we take this number that x is equal to, and I put it right back in, go to the assignment box, and I put it in place of x. here. Now I know that Jack makes $500 weekly. That's 2 times 250. And Jill earns $250. Now, how would I check this answer? Well, I take the 500, add 250 to it, and you'll see that I get $750 as stated in the problem. That's the first example.